Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron. I hope you're having a great day or night in Jesus. Thank you so much for being with us. We're looking today at some recent archaeological finds that I don't think are getting quite the maybe recognition that it's jaw-dropping, some of them. What happens now, one thing I'm very grateful for, in secular media, they are coming out on a regular basis with biblical finds, many times with biblical conservative interpretations. So I think that's just tremendous, and that is a wonderful thing, just showing how far and how mature the field of biblical archaeology is, and that it's just entering the realm of general knowledge. And but sometimes, like, it's like a slow drip. You'll get one, then this pretty, like, wow, that's incredible, and then 6 months later another one. So let's look at some of these recent ones that are just absolutely incredible. First of all is they really think they have found the house where Jesus grew up in Nazareth. Now you might say, well, how could they tell that? They've uncovered Nazareth and all this. Well, it's by what is located at the house, because it's fairly obvious by the various objects that are at the house that this would have been the carpenter's house in Nazareth from the first half of the first century AD. That's at that level. There's a lot of different corroborating evidences for the dating and all that. And so who would have been the carpenter at Nazareth in the first half of the first century AD? Well, you might say, wait, there's probably a lot of carpenters at Nazareth. No, they think Nazareth only had a few hundred people in it at that time, again, based on archaeology. And so with a town that size, it probably only had one carpenter. Very good chance it only had one carpenter. And so that's the reason they refer to this as Jesus' house at Nazareth. That they're like, this very well, there's a high likelihood, a high probability that they have found Jesus' house at Nazareth. So I mean, to me, because he was not only the son of a carpenter, he was a carpenter. It mentions one time in the Gospels, is not this the carpenter? So he obviously took over Dad's business. When I say Dad, obviously I'm talking about earthly parentage, not lineage. Right? And so the Jesus house. And another one, very recent, Scott Stripling, great team over in Israel, the oldest Hebrew writing that's found. Now, what's so amazing about it, it's found at Mount Ebal, which was the Mount of Cursing. It had the Mount of Cursing, Mount of Blessing, and it is a curse. And it's from 1200 BC or before. And it was found very near where Joshua, the location of Joshua's altar was. And so it's, first of all, the earliest known Hebrew writings that we have in Israel. They have found some others, but not in Israel. So it's the earliest from Israel. Secondly, it's a curse where there was cursing supposed to be going on from the approximate time period, and it uses the name Yahweh or Jehovah. Yahweh is what scholars say today. I would say the more accurate is Jehovah, but Jehovah or Yahweh twice in there. And it's just a couple dozen words, something like that, but it's pretty amazing. So here you have, not only Joshua's altar's find was amazing enough. I mean, it converted the atheist archaeologist who discovered it, became some form of Christian after that, some form of Christian who baptized. I mean, it was that shocking of a find. It was books put out in the 80s, like by Morrow, mainstream publishers. But now to find this curse tablet is incredible. And for scholars, it solved any question they may have had that the Hebrews were in fact literate, because that was, the Pentateuch couldn't have been written in that time period because the Israelites were not literate. We now know for sure, even liberal scholars say yes, they were in fact literate. Then it's Shiloh. Now, the finding of the tabernacle at Shiloh is big enough. And when I say the finding of the tabernacle, finding where the poles went in, all of this, I mean, that's pretty amazing. They didn't find the tabernacle itself, but they found the enclosure. They're very sure where the holiest of holies was, on and on. But then another thing that really blew my mind is 3 horns, 3 of the 4 horns of the altar in the tabernacle they have discovered. And so, I mean, that to me, you're finding not only where the tabernacle was, relatively conclusively, 80 to 90 percentile plus, but now you're finding parts of the items in the tabernacle. Or it's like, well, that can't be. I mean, that's just incredible. And so 2 other ones recently, they find a jar handle with Jerubbaal on there, very close to where Gideon would have been, fairly close. Jerubbaal was another name for Gideon, from the same century that Gideon would have lived. A jar handle with Jerubbaal. Now, nobody is saying that this necessarily belonged to Gideon in the Bible, but it could have. Nobody's saying it for sure didn't either. It may have. But it does show that in the time period that Gideon was in Israel, that name was in currency. And, you know, even the name that he was called, Jerubbaal, that name was in currency. So that's a big deal, kind of like Goliath and David and all these other names they found, Jezebel. You know, that's a big deal in of itself. But then when you think about what jar handles were used for with Gideon, I mean, it's pretty amazing. And then the seal of the prophet Isaiah, found about 10 feet away from a seal of Hezekiah. So now, you know, they've had the Baruch inscription, the amanuensis or secretary to Jeremiah, for quite some time, a couple of them, one with even his thumbprint on there. Well, now they have a seal of the prophet Isaiah from the time period that is accurate. Because one thing is, they've always tried to say, well, Isaiah couldn't have, you know, there was a first and a second Isaiah, they say, because he had all these prophecies of Messiah. So it couldn't have been written 700 years in advance. Well, now there's Isaiah, the prophet, seal. So that's just some of the recent archaeological discoveries that I think of, so many that are not getting enough recognition. It's like a flood, but when it comes, it's a flood that's coming out a drip at a time. You know, you get one day and one a few weeks later, one another. But when you begin to put them all together, it's absolutely incredible. The Bible's absolutely true. So God bless you. We love you. Thanks for being here. Join us daily. Share with your friends, family, church family. Subscribe. Hit the bell notification and share. Put it on social media. We'll see you later. God bless. Bye-bye.